This is the one. This is that episode that you need to listen to if you haven't listened to any of my other episodes, because we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the real impacts of stress and burnout. And I say this is the one because I've been there and I have the skills in my wheelhouse to be able to dig myself out of that hole. And I hope that by sharing my experience, my story, you can get out of that hole yourself and really mitigate the impacts of stress and burnout. Especially if you are a Black woman living in America, it's imperative that we take this into account so that we can show up and survive, sad to say, what's going on in America right now. And with that, welcome to She Who Heals podcast, a podcast for women who are ready to come back home to themselves and step into a new version of who they are. I'm Kels, your host and your sister in this work. Let's get into it. So like I said, this is that episode. This is the one. And I want to start by saying I am the biggest advocate for women taking care of themselves, mind, body, and soul, doing what needs to be done. But I also know that women just don't know sometimes. Our health, mental, physical, and emotional, and talking about our health has been taboo for many, many years. And I feel like it's just recently in the past even 10 years in the age of social media that women have been able to find community, find answers, fight for answers, and hear the stories of other women who have gone through similar things with their body and with their mental health and just their overall health in general. And if that's you, I'm so happy that you found this episode because we're going to be talking all about it, especially starting with my own story of how I lost my period. So yeah, like I said, let's get into it. So without beating around the bush, today we're going to be talking about how burnout impacts your nervous system and how it's a nervous system issue and how that can also lead to hormonal imbalances, chronic stress, and chronic inflammation, and in some cases, even autoimmune disease. Your body is most likely trying to tell you something, just like mine was in 2018 when my period completely disappeared. I had been in one of the most stressful times of my life, and I was just moving really fast. Graduating from undergrad, trying to find a job and get on my feet financially, and with that came not really paying attention to what I was putting in my body, not moving my body enough, eating a bunch of junk food, fast food. And after a while, it took a toll on my body, not just the physical aspects of what I was directly putting into my body, which probably did cause inflammation just from seed oils and things like that are just naturally going to be in fast food, but also just the mental load of finishing undergrad and then trying to find my own sense of financial stability outside of family. I'm 21, 22 at this point, maybe 22, 23, and I felt very overwhelmed. And my body responded by hormonally stopping my period. And it was pretty scary because, well, I wasn't having a pregnancy scare or anything because I was obviously in a same-sex relationship, but I did feel like something was wrong. And if you've ever been in that situation, if you're not having a cycle, if you're having prolonged bleeding, it is definitely time to go to the doctor because your period can be one of your biggest vital signs in terms of determining your current health, or at least in your reproductive health, because just like your blood pressure or your heart rate, your period can tell you a lot about what's going on in your body. I didn't realize also how out of alignment that I had felt. And a lot of times when we're doing things like working jobs that don't really serve us or just are stressful environments that might not be in alignment, our body will tell us first. I really wanted to be doing something that invoked and used my creative side, but I wasn't. Just trying to push through and survive as a former broke college student, trying to get into my first big girl job and get into a career. I didn't know how to pivot. And I just kept going because I didn't have any other choice. And at that point, I felt like my body was betraying me. But I didn't realize that it wasn't. It was honestly just trying to alert me to my surroundings and wake me up from what the path that I was going down into. Because when your nervous system perceives a threat, which could be chronic stress, overstimulation, overworking, it responds by having elevated cortisol levels, and it remains high, and your body starts to deprioritize anything that isn't vital or anything the body considers non-essential. And especially if you're a woman, your body is not going to want to tell you or be able to be okay with creating a child if you're under an extreme amount of stress. And that's exactly what happened to me. My body's like, no, we're not going to ovulate. We're not going to give you a regular menstrual cycle because too much is going on. You need to take stock and make some changes. And it wasn't until probably almost 3 to 4 years later that I actually started implementing the real changes that helped me to get my period back, because I wasn't getting a lot of answers. Even at that point, my doctor really just wanted to prescribe me some progesterone that was not bioidentical, so just kind of like a synthetic hormone to get my cycle back, but didn't really give me any answers about why my cycle disappeared in the first place. I did have an ultrasound or intravaginal ultrasound, and not much was found, but they diagnosed me with PCOS then, even though I didn't have any cysts on my ovaries, and the only real symptom that I had was that my cycle went away. I didn't have any bad cramping, anything like that. And I guess I was gaining weight as well, but I just attributed that to what I was eating. Okay, so the whole time my body is basically maintaining the score, keeping the score of all the emotional toll that I had been through in undergrad and just the mental weight of trying to get on my feet after undergrad. And if you've been in any type of stressful situation or just overworking yourself, working 40 hours plus a week, being a mom, being a wife, being a dad, being a husband, that can get very stressful. And so outside of what your doctor is telling you, there's probably some things that are happening in your body that could explain this. And a lot of times you won't get that information from your doctor. You might go to TikTok and search for something. You might go to Google, and next thing you know, you diagnose yourself with a chronic disease or an autoimmune disease. But if you're finding yourself in the overworked place, I want to explain scientifically what is going on in the body. Now, some of you may have heard of adrenal fatigue before, and it's not really like a scientific term, and a lot of doctors don't really even diagnose adrenal fatigue. But what's happening is this. Well, I will also add that there's no lab test that can really address this or show what's happening, but that doesn't mean what you're feeling isn't real. So it's called HPA-axis dysfunction. HPA stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, aka the communication loop between your hypothalamus and your adrenal glands, or your brain and your adrenal glands. And this is also responsible for regulating cortisol. So that rhythm can get off when you're under chronic stress because your cortisol levels will spike at the wrong times or stay elevated for prolonged periods. And that dysfunction shows up as inflammation, stubborn weight gain, mood swings, tension and pain, or even gut issues. And even an elimination diet doesn't seem to fix it, because I also tried that. And what I realized was a lot of what I needed to do involves somatic healing and not so much of physically what I'm putting into my body or things like that. And I'll explain more about that, because obviously what we're eating does matter. But when we're talking about chronic stress and that HPA axis, we're really talking about our brain and body connection and how stress can impact that. Because mind you, I'm eating just the same thing as my partner eats. You know, we cook the same foods, eat the same things, and she was not having this reaction. It was just me. My cycle went away. I was really inflamed in my body, and I just felt puffy all the time. And then stress, like I was having trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. It was just a hard time. So if you're there, my heart goes out to you, and I really hope that you get something from this episode, because it can be very unsettling to feel that way and to have something happen or go on with your cycle that just feels like it comes out of nowhere. So once I did get my cycle back, I learned a few things. One of those I already spoke about, or I briefly touched on, which deals with somatic healing. The other is cycle syncing. So if you're a woman who is familiar with PCOS, or what's now termed PMOS, then you could be familiar with these things like the inflammation and the irregular cycles and things like that. But once I did get my period back, I really had to learn a lot about the different phases of my cycle, because obviously I was missing my menstrual cycle for a while, and I wanted to really explore what hormones played a part in that. Now, I won't get too in depth into the hormone and the phases of our cycle in this episode, but if you would like me to go more into that in another episode, definitely drop that in the comments and let me know. But women in general, the cravings, the fatigue can really be hard to manage. But even if you don't have a PCOS diagnosis, a lot of us are walking around in a low grade of constant overstimulation. Just think about it. Phones, TVs, streaming. We're always distracted or thinking about something. And we call it normal these days because everyone's doing it. We over caffeinate to get ourselves through the morning. We push through the exhaustion of the day instead of asking if it's even worth it or what we're doing it for. And we call ourselves lazy without even thinking about if something may be going on with our hormones or our nervous system that needs to be addressed. And we just continue for years ignoring those yellow flags that eventually turn red when our body really starts to speak to us. And feeling lazy is really just our bodies being depleted, but us judging ourselves for it. So, did you guys know the World Health Organization actually defines burnout as a syndrome that comes from chronic unmanaged stress? And it basically is marked by a sense of cynicism or distance in daily activities that you normally feel intrigued by or interested in, or just plain old exhaustion, feeling less effective at things that you normally would do easily. And it's more defined as an occupational phenomenon instead of a medical diagnosis on its own. But here's the thing, your nervous system doesn't clock in or out. The family stress, the weight of holding everyone together, kind of like we talked about in the last episode. If you're an eldest daughter, feeling like you have to keep going and make everyone proud or people please your way to keeping your family together and basically satisfying them before satisfying yourself. And just really quick, if you resonate with any of what I'm saying and you feel stuck, it may be time to use some of these journal prompts from the last few episodes to really dig deep and find what the misalignment is. Because 9 times out of 10, there's a job out there, there's a hobby out there, there's something out there that will help you to feel less stressed and more like a human and not a robot, because it's easy when we're working to just be in autopilot and feel like we have to keep going, have to keep things afloat. And that may be true because the economy is trash right now, but there's small ways that you can implement these creative pursuits or stress relievers, like working out, going for a walk, finding, if you want to start painting, whatever it is, those things are going to help to manage the stress that we so desperately need to manage. Otherwise, the burnout will show up and it will continue to show out. And a lot of times that's why we see burnout and hormone dysfunction go hand in hand, because they're not really separate problems. They're the same problem, just showing up in different parts of your body in different ways. So because I'm not a doctor, I'm not trying to diagnose anyone. I definitely encourage you to speak with your medical professional. I am a trained holistic health coach though, so I do have some tips for managing stress and what you can do to really see changes in your body other than what your medical professional suggests. Now, if you're someone who really likes to look at things through a holistic lens and maybe you're not ready to jump on medication if you're having an irregular cycle, I'm going to suggest a few things. One, get your blood work done. If your doctor doesn't do a full panel, I highly suggest getting one done outside of your primary care physician. There's a lot of different kind of telehealth companies these days that are doing things like blood work for you, and they will also have a physician that can go over that blood work and give you some suggestions for supplements and things like that. Now, that's what I did. I've done that on 2 occasions. Back in 2022, I went and saw a functional medicine doctor and was prescribed supplements based on my PCOS diagnosis at the time. Now, the second time that I've done this is through a company called Joy and Bloke, who I'm working with now. I've gotten blood work and have a new diagnosis that is not PCOS actually. And it explains a lot because the irregular cycles is one thing, but it wasn't coming from what I thought it was in terms of just PCOS and the hormonal imbalances. The root cause was different than what I thought it was. Let's just say that. So it's really important to get that blood work so that you can see exactly what that root cause may be, whether it's your thyroid, like it is for me, whether it is a metabolic issue, like it is for most people. There's also insulin resistance, and your A1C, your blood sugar levels, can really be contributing to hormonal imbalances as well. But since we're not diagnosing, I'm going to get into some things that you can do to help. There's a few things that I've learned that matter more than what the wellness industry makes it look like, and what your doctor kind of tells you is super important, like, oh, just lose weight, or oh, this is just what happens when you get older with your hormones, women and fertility, we're on that biological clock, whatever. I'm going to tell you that not believe that because there are women that are having kids in their 40s. So don't believe the hype. Definitely lean into somatic healing and also getting that routine blood work, because not just when you feel like something's wrong, you should be tracking that regularly, especially as us women, men as well, we're getting older, things do change, but that doesn't mean that we should be suffering. So along with that, and what I used was cycle syncing once I did get my cycle back, and really implementing certain, routine at certain points in your cycle. One of those is going to be eliminating a lot of distractions and quieting your mind, especially if you consider yourself an overstimulated person. That could be 5 to 10 minutes every day of just sitting in silence without your phone. If you want to listen to music, dance around the house, whatever that looks like for you, but finding a way to quiet the overstimulation. And that kind of leads me into the next point, moving your body in a way that feels good to you. Don't jump out here, especially if you have been gaining weight or you've been noticing inflammation in your body. Don't jump out here and do a HIIT workout 3 to 5 times a week. That is not going to help you. If you're under 30, maybe HIIT is for you, right? When your body is at its peak health. But the older you get, the more beneficial it is to find something that actually feels good in your body, whether that's just going for a walk, whether that's something like Tai Chi, that's very easy on the body, but also very impactful, because a lot of what you're doing is hitting the points in your body that release inflammation and get your lymphatic system draining. That's also going to help with inflammation, bloating, and things like that. Pilates, things that help your body to really get into a state that's calm and is going to improve not only your physical health, but your mental health as well. And my favorite is somatic healing. So those are practices, movements, breath work that help your body to come again into a relaxed state. And it gives your body a way to complete the stress response. Whereas normally we just feel like stress is going to leave our body if we take a few deep breaths or, I don't know, go for a walk. But that's not always the case. Sometimes stress, emotion can get trapped in our body, and we have to find ways to move through that stress, literally. It can be extremely impactful to move in ways that release stress from your body that aren't found just in running or doing a workout class. This is strategically designed to release the stress from your body. And last but not least, stop abandoning yourself. Stop abandoning what you want, what you desire, what you deserve, the people that you deserve in your life, the love that you deserve. Keep that at the center, because once you have that as your vision, you're not going to allow certain things. Whereas before, you may have been around people who just took. You always felt like your cup was empty, or you never had a chance to just be yourself and let your hair down. Even if this is in a work environment or you feel like you're not being valued, those types of behaviors, they ultimately lead us to abandoning ourselves and lead us farther away from ourselves. And that's what we're doing here. We're coming home to ourselves. We're remembering who we are. And so taking some time to take stock of how you feel in these areas of your life is also going to be pivotal for improving your mental health and your physical health in turn. So if this resonates with you, if you feel like you've been running on empty, you're chronically stressed, I'm definitely hoping this episode helped you. And I want to call out that I'll be doing some extended rituals, and also some more somatic healing tips will be posted soon on my socials. So make sure you stay tuned with those, my Instagram, my TikTok, and then Threads as well, where the companion piece for this episode is posted. So if you want to just go to Threads, you'll be able to see the affirmations from the ritual that we're about to do and the journal prompts. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get into today's ritual. I want to invite you to just take a deep breath wherever you are. If you need to come back to this when you have space and time for yourself, feel free to do that. And we're going to be starting with our affirmations today. I do have lots and lots of resources for you guys for releasing people pleasing, and there's definitely going to be more to come, so stay tuned. Let's go ahead and affirm together. So repeat after me or out loud if you can. My exhaustion is not a personal failure. I am allowed to slow down before my body forces me to. I am learning to listen before it becomes an emergency. Okay, and as you reflect on this episode, if anything comes up, as always, write it down. Anything that's a challenge to you, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, write it down. If it needs to be released, if it's safe, you can burn the paper, you can rip the paper and dispose of it. You always have the power to set your intentions and know that you can release what no longer serves you. So with that, we're going to get into our journal prompts for this week. Again, take your time. Take a few deep breaths if you need to, and come back to this as often as you need. Where in your body do you carry the belief, I have to keep going? What has your body been trying to tell you that you've been overriding or ignoring? What would it look like to rest before you're told to? And I also want to encourage you with a body check-in ritual that you can use in companion with this episode or anytime you need it. I want you to try this week. Before reaching for another cup of coffee or for your phone tomorrow morning, I'd like you to place one hand on your heart and one on your abdomen. 5 slow, deep breaths, and ask yourself this: what do I need today? Before I ask what everyone else needs from me. And then don't try to fix anything. Just listen to what comes up. So before we close out this episode, I'd like you to remember that your body was never working against you. It was just trying to get your attention the whole time. And maybe you just weren't taught to listen, but you're learning now. You're learning what safety feels like, and I love that for you. So if you do try the body check-in ritual, let me know how that helps you in the comments. I want to thank you guys. If you've stayed till this part, drop a white heart emoji in the comments. And as always, share this with someone who may need it. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget, we're all becoming something. Thanks for being here while I become too. I'll catch you on the next episode in season 2 of She Who Heals. Peace.